Good evening. Today I'm going to discuss about the invasive species. It's an ecological term. Invasive species are dangerous to a local ecosystem. And when you introduce an animal or a plant to a local ecosystem, which is brought from other ecosystems, they're going to cause damage and destruction. Humans have been responsible for the spread of certain plant and animal species across the earth. Added to this, breeders and researchers are creating entirely new organisms. Three-quarters of the planet's landmass has already been altered by humans. Invasive species can be plants, animals, man, or even viruses, bacteria, and other single-celled organisms. Invasive species can be dangerous. Invasive species disrupt food webs, degrade habitats, introduce parasites and diseases, and lead to species at risk. Globally, only habitat loss is a bigger threat to biodiversity. Fishing, hunting, forestry, tourism, and agriculture can all be affected by invasive species. Fighting and preventing the spread of invasive species is also extremely expensive. Invasive species come from other countries or regions and are called exotic or alien when they move outside their native habitat. Not all exotic species are harmful, but those that threaten our environment, economic or society by disrupting local ecosystems are known as invasive species. One such example of invasive species is Parthenium, a poison plant in India known as Gaja gans. Parthenium weed's botanical name is Parthenium hysterophorus. It is an herbaceous plant and a native of tropical America. The weed was first sighted in Pune in 1956. It was first introduced due to contaminated PL480 wheat imported from the United States, and is also called as Congress grass due to the Congress government which imported the wheat. Parthenium entered India with imported food grains in the mid-1950s. One of the world's 7 most devastating and hazardous weeds, Parthenium invaded 14.25 million hectares of farmland during 2001 and 2007. Initially, the deadly weed occupied largely non-crop areas like wasteland, open forest, and roadsides. Now it has spread to cropping land at an alarming rate. Parthenium has been declared noxious in America, Australia, India, and many other countries, especially those having tropical climates. Scientists describe it as a poisonous, allergic, and aggressive weed posing a serious threat to human beings and livestock. It squeezes grasslands and pastures, reducing the fodder supply. The presence of Parthenium in cropped lands results in yield reduction up to 40%. It is also responsible for bitter milk disease in livestock feed on grass mixed with Parthenium. The reasons for its fast spread are high germination ability throughout the year, large seed production ability, high survival rate, extreme adaptability in a wide range of habitats, and easy dispersal of seeds. Due to its high fecundity, a single plant can produce 10,000 to 15,000 viable seeds, and these seeds can disperse and germinate to cover large areas. Problems associated with Parthenium: it is a vigorous species which colonizes in grassy land. It reduces the production of pasture. It is very expensive to control. It's a major health hazard to human beings. It emits carbon dioxide and hence poses a problem to nitrogen fixation and becomes a parasite dependent on standing crops and animals in its vicinity. Its pollens are a major cause of asthma, especially in children and elderly people. It is a major cause of allergic rhinitis sinusitis, affecting about 10% of the people who live near it. It's a major cause of dermatitis, a skin disease, among animals and human beings. It reduces yield of milk and weight of animals, and it causes irritation to the eyes. Again, anthropology versus cosmology points out that man is the cause for this invasive crisis. Human actions are the primary means of invasive species introductions. The world's worst invasive mammals list has argued that we may have left out the worst invasive species of them all, Homo sapiens. But are humans really an invasive species? In the name of trade and globalization, along with the imported goods, we also import the invasive species of plants and animals as a biological cargo to all the continents. Under its concrete and steel hull, ships transport algae, crabs, starfish, microbes, snails, barnacles, worms, mussels, rats, limpets, and other invasive species to the native land. These invasions, trivial and serious, got me to thinking about an earlier biological event that took place about 40,000 years ago in Australia. It was then that humans, an invasive species, first found their way to the island continent on a different kind of an alien ship. Within a few thousand years of human occupation and completely independent of climate or other environmental changes, most species of large animals in Australia either went extinct or were decimated. Giant kangaroos, flightless birds, and what looked like oversized wombats disappeared in a geological flash. Extending history to archaeology, the indigenous human population of North America sometime before about 15,000 years ago were also invasive species, arriving in several waves, perhaps over the Bering Land Bridge. Extending archaeology to geology, the massive exchange of flora and fauna that took place between North America and South America when the Isthmus of Panama rose volcanically from the sea about 3 million years ago led to invasions in both directions, the main consequence of which was the decimation of the indigenous South American biota. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, which developed the list of the 100 world's worst from which our invasive mammal species originated, defines them as animals, plants, or other organisms introduced by man into places out of their natural range of distribution, where they become established and disperse, generating a negative impact on the local ecosystem and species. And a 2004 paper, Diversity and Distribution, that examines the terminology of invasiveness, notes that there is a lack of consensus on this topic and lists 5 dominant definitions for invasive, the most popular of which is widespread, that have adverse effects on the invaded habitat. Despite the lack of single definition, however, we can pull from these definitions some general aspects of an invasive species and apply those to Homo sapiens. An invasive species is widespread humans, which can be found on every continent, floating on every ocean, and even circling the skies above, certainly meet this aspect of invasiveness. An invasive species has to be a non-native. Humans have colonized every continent. Sure, we have done some rearranging of population since then and had an explosion in population size. An invasive species is introduced to a new habitat. Humans move themselves. There is no outside entity facilitating their spread. An invasive species had adverse effects on its new habitat and or on human health Humans meet this part of the definition in too many ways to count. Therefore, we are an invasive species. We are certainly doing harm to the world around us. If you think about it, all of the harm done by invasive species is by definition our collective faults. Some kind of human action led to that species being in a new place where it then causes some harm. And so I'm not at all astonished to find people arguing that we are the worst invasive species of them all. Thank you.